Let's look at the environmental legislation and institutional measures in India. Now, for the environmental legislation, the first legislation we are going to deal with is Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Now, Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 is an act of the Parliament of India enacted for safeguarding our flora and fauna diversity. It is aimed towards protecting wild animals and plants and for matters connected therewith or ancillary or incidental thereto. The act covers the whole of India under its ambit. Now, salient features of WPA includes it provides for the establishment of national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, etc. It paved way for the formation of Central Zoo Authority. Now, the Act lists 6 schedules which give varying protections to flora and fauna of the country. Those under Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 get absolute protection. Now, the Act provides for licenses for sale, transfer, and possession of some wildlife species. Scheduled animals are prohibited from being traded as per the provisions of the Act. The Act also prohibits hunting of endangered species. Now, there are 5 types of protected areas established under the WPA 1972. These are wildlife sanctuaries, national parks, conservation reserves, community reserves, and tiger reserves. Now, let's study these in detail. The wildlife sanctuaries are declared by the state governments if the area was thought to be of adequate ecological, geomorphological, and natural significance. Now, national parks are declared again by the state government in addition to the declaration of wildlife sanctuaries. However, within the law, the difference in conservation value of national park and WLS is not specified. Now, let's look at the differences between national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. National parks enjoy a greater degree of protection than wildlife sanctuaries. Certain activities which are permissible in wildlife sanctuaries, example grazing, are prohibited in national parks. Now, wildlife sanctuaries can be created for a particular species, while national parks is not primarily focused on a particular species. While boundaries of a national park are fixed and defined, it is not the case with wildlife sanctuaries. National parks cannot be downgraded to the status of wildlife sanctuaries, but wildlife sanctuaries can be upgraded to the status of national park. Now, the chief wildlife warden may grant permissions to persons for entry, residence into the sanctuary for the study of wildlife, scientific research, photography, etc. Now, both central and state government can declare wildlife sanctuaries and national parks. Also, territorial waters can be included into area to be declared as wildlife sanctuaries or national park for the protection of offshore marine flora and fauna. Now, no alteration of the boundaries of the WLS, that is wildlife sanctuaries of national park, can be made except on the recommendation of National Board of Wildlife. Now, let's see conservation reserves and community reserves. They both are outcomes of amendments to the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Now, conservation reserves are those areas, particularly those adjacent to sanctuaries or parks, that are declared such as conservation reserves after consulting the local communities. Now, the state government may declare any private or community land as community reserves after consultation with the local community or an individual who has volunteered to conserve the wildlife. Now, Goga Bheel has been declared as Bihar's first community reserve. It is an oxbow lake in Bihar's Katihar district and is formed from the flow of river Mahananda in the north and Ganga is the south and east. Now, let's look at tiger reserves. The tiger reserves are declared on the recommendation of National Tiger Conservation Authority for the protection and conservation of tiger. Now, management effectiveness evaluation is the assessment of how well protected such areas such as national park, wildlife sanctuaries, conservation reserves, community reserves, and tiger reserves are being managed and their effectiveness in conserving flora and fauna. Now, let's look at the second most important environment legislation, which is Environment Protection Act of 1986. Now, the Environment Protection Act of 1986 authorizes the central government to protect and improve environmental quality, control, and reduce pollution from all sources, prohibit or restrict the setting in or operation of any industrial facility on environmental grounds. The Act was enacted in 1986 with the objective of providing for the protection and improvement of environment. It empowers the central government to establish authorities charged with the mandate of preventing environmental pollution in all and its form to tackle specific environmental problems that are peculiar to different parts of the country. The Act was last amended in 1991. In this Act, environment is defined to include water, air, land, and interrelationships which exist among them. Now, the purpose of the Act is to implement the decisions of the United Conference on Human Environment of 1972, which relates to the protection and improvement of human environment and prevention of hazards to human beings, other living creatures, plant and property. The Act has relaxed the rule of locus standi, and because of such relaxations, even a common citizen can approach the court with prior legal notice. Now, the Environment Protection Act grants immunity to officers of the government for any act done under the provisions of this Act. It further debars civil courts from having any jurisdiction to entertain any suits, proceedings in respect of an action, direction, order issued by the central government or any other statutory authority under this Act. Now, let's move on to the Biological Diversity Act of 2002. Now, the Biological Diversity Act of 2002 was born out of India's attempt to realize the objectives enshrined in the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, which recognizes the sovereign rights of the states to use their own biological resources. The Act is aimed at the conservation of biological resources, managing its sustainable use, and enabling fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of use and knowledge of biological resources with local communities. The Act envisaged a 3-tier structure, that is, a National Biodiversity Authority as a statutory body at the national level, state biodiversity boards at the state level, and biodiversity management committees at the local levels. So, authority boards and committees are established according to this Act. Now, the Act prohibits following activities without prior approval of the National Biodiversity Authority. Now, any person or organization, either based in India or not, obtaining any biological resources occurring in India for its research or commercial utilization. The transfer of result of any research relating to any biological resource occurring in or obtained from India. Now, these are prohibited activities, and they need prior approval from NBA. The claim of any intellectual property right on inventions based on research made on the biological resources obtained from India. Any grievances related to the determination of the benefit sharing or order of the NBA or SBBs under this Act shall be taken to the National Green Tribunal. Now, as per National Biodiversity Authority, the following acts and rules are related to biodiversity. The Fisheries Act of 1897, Destructive Insects and Pests Act of 1914, the Agriculture Produce, Trading and Marketing Act of 1937, Import and Export Control Act of 1947, Indian Forest Acts of 1927, Mines and Mineral Development Act Regulation, that is of 1957. Now, let's move on to the Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Recognition of Forest Rights Act of 2006. Now, the Forest Rights Act deals with the right of forest dwelling communities over land and other resources. The Act grants legal recognition to the rights of the traditional forest dwelling communities. Now, the Ministry of Tribal Affairs is the nodal agency for implementing the Act. Now, the rights enshrined under the FRA are forest management rights, title rights subject to a maximum of 4 hectares, right to minor forest produce, grazing, etc., relief and development rights like rehabilitation in case of eviction. Now, the eligibility to get rights under the Act is confined to those who primarily reside in the forest, who depend on forest and forest land for a livelihood. Further, the claimant must be a member of the ST community scheduled in that area or must have been residing in the forest for 75 years prior to the cutoff date of 13 December 2005. Now, Gram Sabha or the village assembly is the initial authority which passes a resolution recommending whose right to which resources should be recognized. The national parks and wildlife sanctuaries have been included along with reserve forests and protected forests for the recognition of rights. The rights conferred under this act shall be heritable but not alienable or transferable. The Act has also defined the term minor forest produce to include all non-timber forest produce of the plant origin, including bamboo, brushwood, stumps, cane, tasser, cocoons, honey, wax, lac, tendu leaves, etc. These are all non-timber forest produce. Now let's move on to National Forest Policy of 1988. Salient features of the policy are maintenance of environmental stability through preservation, restoration, and ecological balance, conservation of natural heritage of the country by preserving remaining forests, checking soil erosion and extension of sand dunes, increasing forest cover by afforestation and development of wastelands, meeting basic requirements of the people, that is fuel, timber, food, and encouraging wood substitutes, efficient utilization of forest produce, conservation of biological diversity, a network of national parks, biosphere reserves, and other protected areas should be extended and properly managed. Now let's look at joint forest management. It is an approach and program initiated in the context of National Forest Policy of 1988, wherein state forest departments support local dwelling communities to protect and manage the forest and share the cost and benefits from the forest with them. Now let's look at Draft National Forest Policy of 2018, aiming at sustainable forest management by incorporating elements of ecosystem security, climate change, forest hydrology, robust framework to monitor and develop forest resources, and strengthen an overall environmental balance. Its important provisions are that it envisages a community forest management mission, proposes private intervention in forests for maintaining quality, emphasizes the importance of urban forestation, and proposes setting up of National Board of Forestry for better management of country's forest. Now under Green Highway Projects, that is Transplantation, Beautification and Maintenance Policy of 2015, Ministry of Road Transport and Highways has decided that all existing national highways and 40,000 kilometers of additional roads in the next few years as green highways. Now, 1% of the total cost of all highway projects will be kept aside for highway plantation and its maintenance. Now, let's look at coastal regulation zones. Now, CRZs are classified into CRZ 1, CRZ level 2, 3, and 4. Now, CRZ level 1s are areas that are environmentally most critical and are further classified into classifications of A and B. Now, Class A includes the ecological sensitive areas like mangroves, corals, sand dunes, turtle nesting grounds, protected areas, etc. Now, Zone B includes intertidal zones. Now let's look at CRZ Type 2, the developed land areas up to or close to the shoreline within the existing municipal limits or in other existing legally designated urban areas. Moving on to CRZ 3, land areas that are relatively undisturbed, which is rural areas, and those do not fall under CRZ 2. CRZ 3 is further classified as CRZ 3A and B. A is areas with population density of more than 2,161 square kilometers per square kilometer as per the census of 2011, whereas B are those population areas with density less than 2161 per square kilometer. Now CRZ 4, these constitute water areas and is further classified into CRZ 4A and Type B. The water areas and seabed areas between the LTL up to 12 nautical miles on the seaboard side. Now B are the water areas and bed areas between LTL at the bank of the tidal influence water body to the LTL on the opposite side of the bank, extending from mouth of the water body at sea up to the influence of tide. Moving on, recently the government has approved the CRZ notification of 2018 based on the recommendation of Sailesh Nayak Committee report. Now CRZ notifications are produced under the Environment Protection Act of 1986. Now salient features of these notifications are floor space index norm, which has been eased and restrictions imposed on it has been defrozen. No development zone, that is NDZs, of 20 meters have been stipulated for all islands. Now NDZs has been reduced for densely populated areas under CRZ 3. Now CRZ 3 Type A area shall have NDZ of 50 meters from high tide level on the landward side, whereas CRZ Type B 3 Type B area shall have an NDZ of 200 meters from the high tide level. Now all ecological sensitive areas have been accorded special importance. Defense and strategic projects have been accorded necessary dispensation. Pollution abatement has been given due importance by permitting construction of treatment facilities in CRZ Type 1B areas with due safeguards. Now CRZ clearance have now been streamlined. Now CRZ clearance are needed only for Type 1 and Type 4 projects, while state will have the power to grant clearances for CRZ Type 2 and Type 3 areas. Now temporary tourism infrastructure amenities will now be promoted. Such temporary tourism facilities will be permissible in the no development zone as well as CRZ 3 areas. Now let's move on to the Wetland Conservation and Management Rules of 2017. Wetland Conservation and Management Rules of 2017 has been made for the effective conservation and management of wetlands in our country. The key features of the rules are decentralization of management with delegation of power to the state governments. Now Central Wetland Regulatory Authority has been replaced by National Wetlands Committee. The state or union territory wetland authority will have to prepare a list of all the wetlands, develop a comprehensive list of activities to be regulated and permitted within the notified wetlands and their zone of influence. Now, the rules also prohibit encroachment on wetlands, solid waste dumping, discharge of untreated waste and effluents from industries and human settlements, poaching, etc. On the other hand, regulated activities include subsistence level biomass harvesting, sustainable culture fishery practices, flying of non-motorized boats, and construction of temporary nature. It prescribes that the conservation and management of wetlands should be on the principle of wise use defined by Ramsar Convention. However, there is no provision of appealing to the NGT. Also, the definition of wetland does not include river channels, paddy fields, man-made water bodies, tanks specifically for drinking water purposes, and structures specifically constructed for aquaculture, soil production, recreation, irrigation purposes. Now, MOEF has notified guidelines for implementation of wetland conservation and management rules of 2017. Wetlands to be regulated include wetlands designated to the list of wetlands of international importance under the Ramsar Convention, that is, the Ramsar list. Now, wetlands notified under the rules by the central government, state government, and union territory administrations. All wetlands, irrespective of their location, size, ownership, biodiversity, or ecosystem value, can be notified under the wetland rules, except river channels, paddy fields, certain categories of human-made water bodies, among others. These are the exceptions. Now, moving on, we have protected areas and areas falling within the purview of coastal regulation zones, which have been excluded from the notification under wetland rules. Now, state wetland authority will be set up with the ministry in charge of environment in the state acting as the chairperson of the authority. Now, the list of wetland is to be developed on wetland definition based on the definition of Ramsar Convention. For each wetland to be notified, a zone of influence is to be defined. Now, let's look at the solid waste management rules of 2016. These rules replace the municipal solid waste management and handling rules of 2000. Its silent feature include the rules are now applicable beyond municipal areas and include urban agglomerations, census towns, notified industrial townships, etc. The source segregation of waste has been mandated. Generator will have to pay user fee to waste collector and spot fine for littering and non-segregation. Rules mention for time frame for setting up solid waste processing facilities by all local bodies. Every waste generator shall segregate and store the waste generated by them in 3 separate streams, namely biodegradable, non-biodegradable, and domestic hazardous waste. Ministry of Urban Development shall formulate national policy and strategy on solid waste management. The Department of Fertilizer, Ministry of Chemicals shall promote marketing and utilization of compost. They also promote setting up of waste to energy plants. Now let's look at the Hazardous and Other Waste Management and Transboundary Movement Amendment Rules of 2019. Now, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has amended the Hazardous and Other Waste Management and Transboundary Movement Rules of 2016. Some of the salient features of the amended rules include solid waste, plastic waste has been prohibited from import into the country, including in special economic zones and by export-oriented units. Now, exporters of silk waste now have been given exemptions from requiring permissions of the MOEFCCs. Also, electric and electronic assemblies and components manufactured and exported from India, if found defective, can now be imported back into the country within a year of export without obtaining permission from MOEFCCs. Now, industries which do not require consent under Air Act of 1981 are now Water Act is of 1974 and Air Act is of 1981 are now exempted from requiring authorization under the Hazardous and Other Waste Management and Transboundary Rules of 2016, provided that the hazardous and other waste generated by such industries are handed over to authorized actual users, waste collectors, or disposal facilities. Now let's move on to the construction and demolition waste rules of 2016. Now, some of the salient features of the rules are prescribes duties of the waste generators like segregating construction and demolition waste and depositing it at collection centers. It also provides duties of service providers and contractors. It prescribes the time frame for the implementation of the rules. Now, let's look at the biomedical waste management rules of 2016. Some of the salient features of the rules are the ambit of the rule has been expanded to include vaccination camps, blood donation camps, surgical camps, or any other healthcare activities. It calls for phasing out of chlorinated plastic bags, gloves, and blood bags within 2 years. It calls for pre-treatment of laboratory waste, microbiological waste, blood samples, and blood bags. It seeks to provide training to all its healthcare workers and immunize all health workers regularly. It seeks to establish a barcode-based system for bags and containers containing biomedical waste for disposal. As per the rules, biomedical waste have been classified into 4 categories, that is untreated human anatomical waste, animal anatomical waste, soil wastes, and biotechnology waste. As per the rules, the state government shall provide land for setting up of biomedical waste treatment and disposal facilities. E-waste management rules of 2016. Now, another e-waste management rule has come in 2022. So let's look at the rules from 2016. The new e-waste rules include CFLs and other mercury-containing lamps as well as other equipment. For the first time, rules brought producers under the EPR, that is Extended Producer Responsibility, making them responsible for the collection of e-waste and its exchange. Now, various producers can have a separate producer responsibility organization and ensure collection of e-waste as well as their disposal in an environmental friendly manner. Now, deposit refund scheme has been introduced as an additional economic instrument under which the producer charges an additional amount as a deposit at the time of the sale of the electrical and electronic equipment and returns it to the customer along with interest when the end of the life of electronic waste equipment is returned. Now, phase-wise collection targets for e-waste has been introduced. The role of the state government have also been introduced in the rules to ensure safety, health, and skill development of workers involved in dismantling and recycling operations. Urban local bodies have been assigned the duty to collect, channelize the orphan products to authorized dismantlers or recyclers. Now, the amendment rules of 2018 has added the reduction hazard system, that is ROHS provisions, under which cost of sampling and testing shall be borne by the government for conducting the ROHS test. And if the product does not comply with the ROHS provisions, then the cost of the test will be borne by the producers. Now, let's move on to the plastic waste management rules of 2016. Some of the salient features of the rules are increase the minimum thickness of the plastic bags from 40 microns to 50 microns and stipulate minimum thickness of 50 microns for plastic sheets, also to facilitate collection and recycling of plastic waste. Now, it also wants to expand the applicability of jurisdiction from municipal areas to rural areas. It wants to promote the use of plastic waste for road construction as per the Indian Road Congress guidelines or energy recovery or waste to oil, etc. for general utilization of waste and also address the waste disposal issue. First time, responsibility of waste generators like individuals and bulk generators like offices have been introduced to introduce collection of plastic waste management fee through pre-registration of producer importers of plastic carry bags, multi-layered packaging, vendors selling the same for establishing the waste system. Extended producer responsibility has been introduced. Central Pollution Control Board has been mandated to formulate guidelines for thermoset plastics. Now, the 2016 rules were amended in 2018. Now, the 2016 rules were amended in 2018, laying emphasis on phasing out multi-layered plastic, which are non-recyclable or non-energy recoverable with No alternate use. Now, the amended rules also prescribe a central registration system for the registration of producer, importer, and brand owner. A national registry has been prescribed for producers with a presence in more than 2 states, and a state level registration has been prescribed for smaller producers and brand owners operating within 1 or 2 states. Now, let's look at some of the miscellaneous provisions. Now, let's look at some of the provisions of Indian Forest Act of 1927. It was enacted to consolidate all previous laws regarding forest and extend states' control over forest, as well as diminishing the status of people's right to forest use. The Act regulated the movement and transit of forest produce and duty leviable on timber and other forest produce. It also defined forest offences. The Act classified forest into reserved forest, protected forest, and village forest. Amending the Indian Forest Act, bamboo grown in non-forest areas have been exempted from the definition of trees to promote it commercial cultivation. Now, the Mines and Mineral Development Regulation Act of 1957 was enacted to regulate the mining sector in India. The Act is applicable to all minerals except mineral minerals and atomic minerals. Minor minerals, example, river sand, comes under the purview of state government. For mining in forest lands, prior permission of Environment Ministry is required. Now, let's look at the Pradhan Mantri Khanij Kshetra Kalyan Yojana, that is PMKKY. It is aimed at mitigating the adverse impacts during and after mining on environment, health, socio-economic conditions of the people in mining districts, and also to ensure a sustainable livelihood for the affected people. It is being implemented by the district mineral foundations of the respective districts that use the funds collected by the DMF from the miners. Now, 60% of the funds will be utilized for high priority areas such as drinking water supply, and 40% of the fund will be utilized for areas like physical infrastructure, irrigation, energy, and watershed development. The DMF is a trust set up under the Mines and Minerals Amendment Act of 2015 as a non-profit body in those districts affected by mining operations. Now, Green Tribunal, that is the National Green Tribunal, is a statutory body established in 2010 to handle the expeditious disposal of cases pertaining to environmental issues. It was enacted in consonance with right to healthy environment under the Article 21 of the Constitution. Now,